Go.
What's up, you beautiful bastards? My name is Ross. This is Super Geeks. These are my eyebrows, and let's just jump into it.
All right. All right. All right. As Matthew McConaughey would say, all right. All right. All right. We're Super Geeks Live, and we're doing this from Facebook today because you know what? Sometimes old school is the right school. Joining me today, as always, is Carlos. How are you, Carlos?
Ready for action.
How are you, Carlos?
Ready for action.
Are you sure you're ready for action?
I'm ready for action.
All right.
And Ross, you are a beautiful bastard.
All right. And also
Thank
with
you.
me today is... He is a beautiful bastard. Also joining us today is the Mummy, a.k.a. Justin, also known as Wheelie Pike. How are you, Justin?
He's beeping for Pike. Okay. That's
He's
a
not
no,
well. Two
right?
beeps is no, so he's not doing well. Sorry, man.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Justin.
Thank you.
And Son has joined us.
All
Hi,
right.
Son.
Justin
Hooray.
has joined us.
Secure from
Carlos, I'm
Sausage
handing you the-
Fest.
And son, how are you?
Well, considering I just woke up from a 2-hour nap after
So-
being up for like 3
Jeez.
in the morning.
Did everybody get a nap but me?
I did.
I got a nap. Did you get a nap, Carlos?
Earlier this afternoon, yes.
I've been up since like 3 this morning, so yeah.
Damn.
Oh, did you? Oh, well.
Well, luckily, we're all
So you're
awake
doing all right?
and ready to go.
Fresh out of the oven. We're,
Yeah, we're
fresh out of the oven. We're ready to go.
Like
That's the way.
like a nice batch of croissant.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one
Rained
of
here
Carlos's donuts.
It rained here for 2.5
That reminds me, I'm
days.
overdue for making some donuts. I'm sorry, Son, I didn't
You
mean to talk
are.
over you. What'd you say?
It was rained here for 2.5 days, and then all of a sudden it got really cold. So it's kind of an oven in here already.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been like that here too. My
It
internet's
snowed
acting
here.
really weird. And then of course we have Ross, who is doing the Phil DeFranco homage. How are you doing, Ross?
Doing all right. Spending the weekend without the lady, so a little down about that. But hey, I'm here, so it's looking up a little bit. Or down, depending on your perspective.
All right. All right. Well, as Ross just said, let's just jump into it. So our first topic, Carlos, what is our first topic?
Our first topic is the news about Game of Thrones creators,
Benioff and Weiss.
Benioff and Weiss, who had inked a huge deal with about $250 million with Netflix. They had also been tapped to develop the next trilogy of Star Wars films, and apparently those two things cannot exist in the same universe. So they're bailing from Star Wars to focus on the big money from Netflix.
One of the two new series is. Rain Johnson's is still going forward.
Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, people are talking about that too, but that's a separate. We'll talk about that also. That may be what's coming up next, which is scaring a lot of people. Yeah, so Benioff and Weiss, the guys that, or as some people call them, D&D, Dan and Dan, because they both have the first name Dan.
Dan squared.
Dan squared, exactly.
Mhm.
Now here's what's causing the controversy. Well, there's a lot of reasons why. They did an interview while they were, I don't remember what country they were in, but they were doing an interview recently, like the other day. And what caused a lot of commotion was during this interview, they talked about a little transparently, a little candidly, saying stuff like they didn't know what they were doing. Now, people knew this, but it's the way they came about it. They talked about how when they first were given Game of Thrones and got everybody to agree, they were shocked because they had no experience. They had no clue, but yet everybody let them handle it. And they went through that first pilot, which sucked. They had to reshoot it. That cost $1 million. And then they ended up having several seasons of a great show, but they talk about in hindsight about they're like, we had no clue what we were doing. It was a learning process through doing a television show. It was like the school of fine art of filmmaking by doing, but we figured it out as we went.
It's actually, that is terrible news. It's terrible news. I mean,
but they talked about that a long time ago. But that's not the part that troubled everyone. It was the thing they said after that, which was, and some days we were even drinking on the set and drunk going, what are we doing? And it's like, they were a little too transparent. Go ahead, Carlos, what were you going to say?
Well, I mean,
to add that part
I personally don't think that's as big a deal because frankly, on a day-to-day operational level, it's the people who are running the show who you want to make sure are sober. Producers,
right.
They have tons of people around them. You know, their work happens at a different time than the actual shooting of the show. I mean, they're around, but they're not like directing scenes or, not doing anything that's operational. The director's handling it, the first assistant director's handling that, the cinematographer's handling it, the gaffers and grips are handling it. So I don't care that occasionally they might have been drunk. I do care that these two guys, white guys from super privileged backgrounds, one of whom his dad is the head of Goldman Sachs. So it was easy for him to get a meeting at HBO.
Right.
And for these guys, I mean, there's so many people with a lot more experience who don't have that kind of access and whom HBO would never turn over a hundreds of millions of dollars project over to. But these guys, they would because, they're rich white guys. I mean, literally, that's the reason why.
Yep.
But at the same time, HBO had some reasons to do that. They had already committed and gotten a lot of money in pre-sales for this show, which meant that they were pretty much obligated to make it. And we've all heard the story of the first pilot that was shot for Game of Thrones and how it was basically an utter mess. And it was an utter mess because these guys really didn't know what they were doing. And to their credit, they do admit that, but still it's a chance that most people in the industry would not get. And so HBO spent more money to redo it and presumably assigned better people to work with them and came up with a better pilot. Even so, of all the episodes, the pilot, it was very thrilling. There's lots of interesting stuff, but it is an incoherent mess. I mean, you really have to watch it multiple times, or as I had to do, read recaps to really understand everything that happened. And of course, at first, you blame the victim, you blame yourself.
And can you imagine what
I just didn't understand it until you actually realize that, no, it's an incoherent mess. I mean, it was a great looking incoherent mess, but, and to their credit, in the second episode and subsequent episodes, it was much, much better. But, they really did bite off more than they could chew on in both versions of those pilots. And luckily the second one was good enough to really propel the entire series forward. But, it's a little disturbing to me as someone in the industry who, you have to work hard for every opportunity you get, and to have one like handed to you like this with zero actual producing.
Yeah, it's almost like they were two Saturday Night Live characters almost. When you've heard the whole story, it seems like they were two guys just stumbling upon success.
When they say it themselves that, the reason it was so good is because they basically let the actors tell them what to do. I mean, the actors figured out their own characters and how they relate to one another and everything. And I mean, that's alarming because I love actors, but actors generally focus on just their own character, and they depend on directors and writers and producers to make the connections for them or show them what the connections are. And then of course they breathe life into those connections. But to hear that it was really the actors who were shouldering a lot of that work, that's both exciting to hear in terms of this clearly was a great cast, but also depressing to hear that these two guys with no experience were, they basically they were saved by their own actors, and there's no reason why that should have had to have happened. I mean, it did, it worked. We got a pretty great series. So, but still, it makes me, if I were Netflix, I would be a little worried about how that $250 million is going to be.
So let me break down some of the details that the Hollywood Reporter and Deadline talked about. So it isn't just the fact. There's a lot more to it. The story over the few days after this broke got more interesting as details came out. It wasn't just the fact that they said this interview and they talked about how, we didn't know what we were doing. There was a lot more to it than that. Now, what happened was they did this, and all of a sudden they get this from what I heard. I'm doing a timeline breakdown. They suddenly get called into Bob Iger from Disney's office, the head of Disney, and he brings the boys into the office, and of course I'm paraphrasing because people aren't sure of exactly. They may never find out exactly what happened, but here's what is generally assumed to have happened. They bring them into the office, and Bob Iger says, guys, you were very transparent during this interview about how you've already come out of a lot of hate from season 8 of how you ended Game of Thrones. You're talking about how the whole time you had no clue what you were doing, that you were basically just winging it, and blah, 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 blah. You stumbled upon success. Then you got like season 8 where everybody's angry and it's caused huge backlash. And then on top of that, you're like supposed to, from what I'm hearing, Kathleen Kennedy got nervous, not just from this interview, it was supposedly a few months back, where somebody compared it to in another podcast, and I laughed at this, to dating. She basically found out that Netflix and them were doing this thing. And Disney's already got some kind of a rivalry going on with Netflix anyways.
Sure, of course.
So she basically said to them, guys, are we exclusive or are you seeing someone else on the side? I need to know. It's cool as long as you're honest with me because I didn't know about this before. And they were like, well, yeah, is that a problem? And she was basically like, well, yeah, because, I want you to focus. Star Wars, hello. And they're like, well, I didn't think it was going to be a problem. I didn't think I had to tell you who I was dating or who I was going to see on this. That's kind of like an analogy somebody made. And the idea, the general consensus is that Kathleen Kennedy said, we want you to focus because you've already had a little mishmash of your past history with Game of Thrones. And we want you to focus. Whoever's going to do the next Star Wars trilogy, they need to be committed. They need to be almost engaged and ready to marry this thing, not be ready to go and do two things at once. You're not there. You're not like you guys are.
I'm sorry, but if that's the kind of stuff that, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what went on behind the scenes at Disney.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure just by some of the stuff that's been going on out of Disney recently. But
well, this happened back in May.
The biggest answer would be if this is not in the contract. Sorry.
That's the problem. Disney has been
well, okay, but it's easy to focus on these dramatic details, and I'm not saying they're not important, but the real thing, and I think we talked about this a few months ago, if I remember correctly, about sort of like the big problem Star Wars as a franchise has moving forward once this trilogy is done. And it's a huge problem. And the Hollywood Reporter article that you're talking about talks about this at some length, in which long story short, Disney doesn't really know where it wants to go with Star Wars.
They might, and we don't know.
No, they don't know. They don't know. If they did,
just like J.J. Abrams with Lost, they have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah,
oops.
I mean,
J.J.
these
Abrams
guys just left.
That's a little different, though.
No,
but go ahead.
They do not know. they just don't. They that's why they brought on
Kevin Feige
and why they have Ryan Johnson still around to help sort of map out what it's going to look like. Well,
right.
2/3 of that team just walked out the door. So I don't know how much they actually had done by this point, but whatever they had done walked out the door. So it's gone. So they don't know. And it takes time to come up with that kind of stuff. Bob Iger also says that, has pointed to basically kind of a slowdown in how often we're going to start seeing Star Wars movies now that this final trilogy is
which is a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing for a number of reasons. Number one is if they keep adhering to this punishing, every 2 years schedule or every year schedule for a movie coming out, that's really hard to keep up, especially if you don't know where you want to end up.
I think they should stick to the Disney Plus thing because you have less risk and you can throw out better small sort of indie ideas for Star Wars.
It doesn't have to be an either or.
You see the same thing for them. You see the same thing in games where you've got titles like Call of Duty or NBA or Madden or WWE. Just look at WWE 2019. It is an absolute mess. It's at one of those annual games. They stick a number on it, release a game. They're still using assets from 2 years ago.
I kind of think I know what you're talking about, but keep going. Yeah.
It's an absolute train wreck, buggy mess of a game. And these games don't get very well reviewed to begin with, but it's doing worse than it has in years for a couple reasons. One, it's rushed, but two, they also lost their developer and they had to use another in-house studio that has never produced a game before.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, when you have these annual schedules, be it movies, games, or what have you, you're going to see diminishing returns. Just look what Call of Duty has been up till now.
Yeah, it's too punishing a schedule for the kind of just the huge number of details, that it takes to make a blockbuster film. I mean, and that's even apart from just having the right concept and having a good script and finding the right director, all of which we've seen them have trouble with.
But Carlos, let me ask you this. Is it fair for Kathleen Kennedy and I think it is, to sort of put them on the spot and call them out and say, guys, we didn't know that you were having a thing where you're going to split your focus on Netflix project and Star Wars, or we wouldn't have.
I didn't think it was that big a secret. Their negotiations with Netflix were.
Well, that's what from what I'm hearing, they only just found out about it. And that's when and then on top of that, they both said,
ridiculous. I don't believe that's.
Well, hold on. Before anybody comments, I want to throw this one last part in, and then son, you can say whatever you want. Just to throw all the information for you to chew on. The last part of this is that they said in the interview, and I don't know if it's true or if it's just damage control as far as an interview goes, but they claim, and I don't know if it's true or not, that they decided that they didn't know it was going to be this big of a problem, and that they didn't think that they could handle the toxic fandom because of Star Wars, and because they've already got toxic fandom from season 8 of Game of Thrones, and they're starting to look at like what friggin' Ryan Johnson's going through, and they're going, I don't know if this is going to be healthy for us mentally. I don't know if that's a cop out or a interview answer, or if that's actually true. But there's a lot of little things that's like hard to say whether.
Well, let me put it this way: if these guys aren't suffering from an imposter syndrome, they should be. I mean, they should be wondering, can we handle this? Because the reality is that on their own, they probably can't. They were really lucky that all the stars aligned in the proper way for Game of Thrones.
And they never got the kind of shit they had until the last season of Game of Thrones.
But they could have. I mean, they could have.
Actually, Carlos.
Well, I'm sorry, what's that, son?
Go ahead, son.
Literally, actually, Carlos.
Oh,
the stars literally aligned.
That sounds like the same kind of. That sounds like exactly what Sony put out when the negotiations fell through with Disney over Spider-Man. Oh, we don't think Feige has time to focus on the character like we want him to. It's bullshit.
It sort of sounds, based on all the details coming in, like the two of them were like. They were approached because people thought, they got the creative juice, that they might be the next, whatever the two brothers were, the Russo brothers, that they like, hey, they're not brothers, but that the pairing.
Their team.
That they did Game of Thrones. Now, people forget, here's another interesting aspect to this topic. Season 1 of Game of Thrones through season 7 was a complete success. Up until the last season, this show went from boom, 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 boom. It was a hit. Everybody's focusing on the very last season and how they ended it. And then this news comes out, and every fan is turning on them like they never did anything good for 7 years before that.
Okay, but again, there's a lot of answers here we won't ever know for sure.
Right.
But there's a lot. If you look at their actual experience, which is 73 episodes of Game of Thrones, and that's it. I mean, that's it. And we now know that a lot of that was just luck. It was sheer luck for them.
Or someone shadow directing.
Yes. Well, I mean, they hired good people as directors, which is fantastic, and rehired them again. Like, there was always one director whose name escapes me, but he was always the one who directed like the huge battle ones. They were always the second to last episode of each season.
Right.
And he was fantastic, and he brought that deft touch, and so they hired the right people, and that's that in itself as a
they did, or HBO did. Somebody did,
No, they're producers. They hired them.
Okay.
So HBO's no, they don't do that. They may have to approve it, but these guys found them.
Yeah, that's true.
They get the credit for that. I'm not trying to take away credit they earned, but I am pointing out that even with the success of Game of Thrones, they still don't have a ton of
credentials,
experience out of that one show. And of course, the real part of a director, is how well you handle different kinds of projects,
right?
In different, of different scales and scope, and what we're seeing with them is that it's not, it may not translate to what Star Wars really needs. And then that's compounded by the fact that they'll also have their focus split if they were trying to juggle Netflix and Disney at the same time.
Carlos, do you think that the interview, though, there's a lot of aspects to this story that everyone's breaking because they're not even sure, because the two of them are saying one thing, okay, but the one part of this story that nobody's clear upon was their departure, were they allowed to save face by saying they quit, or do you think they were encouraged to quit so that they weren't fired because of the overly transparent interview they gave in Austria, I think it was, wherever it was over that weekend, where they kind of went like, "Hey, we didn't know we were a couple of wild and crazy guys," and they kind of made themselves look bad and discredited themselves in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we know that since August, Kathleen Kennedy and the folks at Disney had been increasingly uncomfortable with the whole Netflix deal.
Right.
So this didn't just break, in the last week.
Oh, right.
This has been, I mean, that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but this is something that's been brewing for months now. So from that perspective, it's not a surprise. And, it may in fact have gone the way you're speculating, George, which is, they sat him down and said, "Hey, we've got a really big challenge here with Star Wars. And if you guys are the ones who need to face that challenge, how do you feel about your ability to do that when you also have a huge commitment over here with Netflix?"
Right.
And these guys aren't dumb. They probably stepped back and thought, maybe not a good idea.
And there's a part of me that believes that.
No, it totally makes sense, because look at what happened in those last two seasons of Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones powered fantastically so long as they had the depth of George R.R. Martin's source material.
Right.
As soon as that no longer existed, it started.
Now, okay. So you're talking about when they got their own.
Yeah. So, as long as they have really strong source material, they do great because they have all these people supporting them.
So you're suggesting.
At the same time, though, George R.R. Martin was still a script consultant and story consultant.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
But I think what Carlos is saying is that when left to their own devices, how creative are they? And so they have to look at it like, hey, we're giving you a Star Wars franchise, which was hinted to be the Old Republic, which, Ross, you should be celebrating. But were they going to have to then rely on the games and all that in order to be their source instead of coming up with an original? You know what I'm saying? That's where it gets interesting. What Carlos just said opens up the door to suggest maybe without some kind of a platform, they were concerned that they couldn't be as creative as they thought they could be. That they needed
the source material allowed them. It was a safety net under which they were, doing.
They could bounce off of it. They could bounce off of it. Yeah.
And once that was gone, their footing became less sure. And we certainly saw that for sure in season 8, but you started seeing signs of it in season 7 as well. And I think we'll have a clearer sense of that if and when George R.R. Martin actually publishes those last books, and you can compare them, because then you'll see what he really wanted compared to what they chose.
Yes,
right.
With just the skeleton that he was able to provide them.
Right. What were you gonna say, Russ?
Well, who's to say that the course of the TV series isn't going to affect his direction for his novels?
Well, he did mention this in a TED Talk. He said that he had a meeting in Spain. He had when they were trying to figure out the course for season 8. They talked about this in a TED Talk. I don't remember who started the TED Talk, but he was part of it. And he said they had a meeting where they all met in Spain. And he basically said, okay, I'm only at this part of my book, so I might as well give you the cliff notes so you can figure out what you're going to do. Here's what I have in mind. Arya is going to kill the Night King, blah, blah, blah. He gave the broad strokes. And then he said, and then they went into it in Spain. And basically they went from there. So that's what they did. But what Carlos is suggesting is very interesting. It could be a little bit of an eye-opener, because if you're taking these guys who, like you guys have been saying, are relying on the source material, and then they had to get a little creative, but they still had some idea of where they were launching from, because George R.R. Martin's basically saying, do this, and then go from there. And then you get season 8, right? So what if, I don't even think this is really the reason, but so Kathleen Kennedy and everybody are going, oh, these guys are awesome. Let's make them do the next Star Wars thing. And then they go, hey, by the way, what have you got for us so far for your idea? And they're looking at the Knights of the Old Republic story and going, how much of this can we use without like copyright thing, even though it's owned by Lucasfilm originally from the IP? It's sort of like saying, okay, no offense to anybody out there, but this is my analogy. And some of you are going to laugh and some of you are going to go, oh, God. It would be like this. It would be like friggin' CBS approaching Alec Peters and saying,
yeah.
Do you have an idea for how we should do this story about Axanar in the actual Star Trek? Alec, can you help us out?
Oh,
thank you, Wheelie Pike.
You just made my ears bleed, George.
I'm just saying it's the same idea.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure it's the same idea, but
I know. I mean,
but
that's the no button. That's the no button. Do you?
But it's
the no button.
It's not too dissimilar, though. That's what I'm saying. It's like them saying, well, if we're going to draw from some kind of a well and we need something, what else has been done for Star Wars that is in this era? Oh, these video games. But there were games. Can we use them, or they were licensed out?
It's not a question of whether they can. Of course, they can use them.
Yeah, I know.
Of course, they can use them.
I'm just saying.
That's not an issue. The question is really their capability for managing Star Wars.
Augustine like that. He's laughing.
And and other major deals. And the reality is, both these guys were shopping themselves over the summer to other studios. And saying that they had to these other studios that they planned to work on Star Wars concurrently with any projects they might be making for them. Right. Now, that's a huge, as we're finding out more and more about how Game of Thrones ended up being produced, where the real pockets of quality were in that, and how many of them was not them. You should be concerned about their capacity to do that. And they may think that the luck that they had with casting the right people and finding the right directors and other people that helped bring Game of Thrones to life, that they would be able to replicate that for Star Wars and for any, and now for Netflix. And I don't think they can make that same
So let's jump
magic
a little bit.
happened twice, and in that sense, they may be like Alec Peters, who had a real success creatively and critically with Prelude to Axanar. But of course, all the people who made that happen for him, directors, producers, editors, all these other people who he's now alienated, and actors who are gone and no longer attached to the project, you have to question about what his capability is really to deliver on that.
Right.
And how much of that really is him and the people that he's found to
right. Well, it
original.
was just an analogy, but under the same, jumping ahead a tiny bit under the same umbrella of the topic, we also found out, so that was the bad news. Game of Thrones had a prequel with Naomi Watts that was filmed. Then AT&T,
the pilot.
The pilot. They had a pilot for this prequel, and nobody's exactly sure whether it was called Blood Moon or what the title was. But the prequel, which had nothing to do with the books, was actually filmed. It was wrapped. It was looked at.
Let's be clear. It's just the pilot.
It was right. It was
one episode. One episode.
It was a pilot for an uncommitted.
Episode.
No, yeah. It was a pilot.
What
for
I'm saying is, when you say it's wrapped. What was wrapped was one episode.
Okay, right. What I mean is the pilot was created under an uncommitted. It wasn't committed to series. It was a pilot,
like most pilots,
except for the next topic, which is that there's another one that was committed without even doing a pilot, straight to series, which is House of Dragons. But we'll talk about that in a second. This one though was tested, and from what I'm hearing, people kept wondering why they scrapped it, not just because it was bad. I heard that AT&T was the reason why this ended up being a mess. AT&T recently took over HBO Max, or became in a power control situation with them, and they have no experience at making TV shows or anything like that. And they clashed with the producers of this pilot, and they basically ended up. That was part of what, there was a lot of drama behind the scenes, and they ended up scrapping, among other things, for the reason that it was no good. We're never going to see it pilot with Naomi Watts that could have been a prequel for Game of Thrones. Now, they have another one that was announced that's a straight to series, which is House of Dragons. I'll talk about that in a minute.
That's supposed to be a sequel, right?
No. It's a prequel.
The Blood Moon was like thousands and thousands of years before.
And Blood Moon was Blood Moon was way back. Yeah, and Blood Moon was not based on anything from books. It was a kind of a thing that they created, like a mix-up. But House of Dragons is different. It is based on a book I love, and George R. R. Martin is directly involved with it, and it's based on Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives. I've talked about them, and I've posted about them. And
so the Conquest of Westeros.
Oh, dude, Conquest of Westeros, and the characters and the story. I read the book. If they even do half the justice, and George R. R. Martin is going to be heavily involved in helping this one. And if they do, that's why I think they actually ordered it straight to series. Is they knew this one has all the potential, just like the original.
Well, again, it has source material.
Yeah, exactly.
And but it has all the magic that was in season 7 and 8, but now in a full series.
I wouldn't say 8, but yeah,
well, you know what I mean. You've got people flying
on
dragons. You've got people slinging magic.
Exactly.
You've got massive armies attacking each other.
Dude, I read the book.
Great about that.
And I'll tell you right now, I read
giant hamburgers attacking each other. What?
I read the book, and I'll tell you right now, without even knowing who's going to be the actors, if they even do this slight justice, this is the story I wanted them to tell. When I found out they were going to do the Naomi Watts thing, I was like, no, do fucking Aegon and all that. That story, they even talk about it in Game of Thrones season, I think, 2, when Arya's talking about how she was fangirling about one of his sister wives. I forget her name, but her sword, Dark Sister. I remember the name of the sword, but I don't remember the name of the sister wife and her dragon and the stuff they did to conquer Westeros. The story is amazing, and it's worthy of a series. It is totally and completely worthy. Now, getting back to the Naomi Watts series, though, that was canceled. Carlos,
I'm sorry, I am skeptical about the AT&T.
Right,
theory. I mean, which is not to say that AT&T may
Do you think
not,
it just sucked? The pilot?
I think that from what I've read, HBO and probably AT&T as well were very worried about sinking a ton of money into a series with no source material to give them some sense of how well it would resonate with with the super fans of the show and the books, and I think they felt like it would potentially alienate them, and they can't afford that, whereas the Dragon one, the Targaryen one, is based on source material that fans, essentially has already been vetted by fans, just like you, George, and it's a much surer thing. And
I mean, just look at what George just did.
Yeah,
I mean, he spoke for like, and this is just me going off the cuff. He spoke for like 3 seconds on what the premise of the Naomi Watts thing was, and then spent like 30 seconds to a minute fanboying over the Targaryen book thing.
Because I read the book. Exactly.
I haven't read the books, but those are my reaction.
That's exactly why.
Because I recognize the potential.
That's exactly the reaction why HBO went and said that's in the can before we even have a pilot. That's exactly why they went and said that's going to be a series right now.
Well, I always know. Yeah, it's not exactly. See, the thing was, when they announced they were going to do 5, originally they said we're going to do 5. This was before the last season even came out and people dumped on it. They said we're going to do 5 spinoffs. Now they didn't say what order and what years they were going to take place, but one of the spinoffs, they never even mentioned this. But I said to myself, dude, do Blood and Fire. Blood and Fire is the story that is about Aegon and his sister wives conquering Westeros. And it also flashes back to other times when Targaryens with their dragons fought each other. And what makes this more epic about this is because it's not just what you've seen on the original Game of Thrones where, dragons have been gone. This takes place exactly when Tyrion's father...
That's what I just said, George.
Right. And what's Tyrion's father's name? That big actor.
Tywin.
Tywin talked to Arya when she was pretending to be that servant in that one episode where she was pretending, and he called her out for it. He knew that she was a noble pretending. He didn't know who she was, but he could tell because she didn't say my lord versus lord. And he said, she talked about.
We're kind of going into the weeds here, George.
Yeah, we are. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm fanboying.
This is a much bigger perspective kind of problem.
Anthony Sloan asked, and I'm mispronouncing his last name. Sion? Anthony, I'm sorry. Anthony.
Yeah,
Sion?
I saw his question too. We don't need to dwell on it. Anthony asks whether or not it's likely we'll ever see the pilot. And the answer to that, Anthony, is probably no. You
probably not.
How many pilots actually get filmed?
It's not an absolute no. What's that sound?
So many pilots get filmed and then get canned. So
I saw the Wonder Woman NBC abandoned.
There's a whole industry, literally. There's a pilot season every year where a ton of pilots are being produced, and actors. I mean, it's a whole industry. And the vast majority of those never get picked up.
Yep.
So,
but not on this scale with the millions and the millions. That's the only difference. So.
Well, and the thing is that if it wasn't good enough to go to series, you likely will not see it. Now, that's not absolute. I mean, I think you brought up the Wonder Woman example where they did release.
You have to find it though from uncredible sources.
And they didn't. Well, didn't they officially make it available?
No, I found it.
I guess you're right. Someone leaked it. You're right. Someone leaked it.
You can see the wires and everything.
Yeah. And so the thing is, until if we ever get a chance to see it, we won't know if because there's still controversy around this. Is it that it was too, it was being headed by a woman whose name escapes me, Julia Goldman. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't.
Anyway,
don't
who's supposed to be really good, but others say that it might have been too ambitious, and because it was so ambitious, that's what terrified HBO and AT&T. Whereas going with the more established choice, run PS by white guys, that was a safer choice, and that's why they chose to do it.
In fact, George R. R. Martin went on record as saying he was trying to justify what they were trying to do with the Naomi Watts thing, which was they were going to introduce the White Walkers and that whole Long Night story in a time period that was like not correct. And George R. R. Martin's excuse to help people that were asking about it was, well, who's to say that the Maester's records were correct? Maybe they weren't. And it's like, that's a nice attempt to try to help the PR department, but
yeah, I mean, again, and unless we see a script or see the pilot, we won't ever know, how much of that is true or could have been problematic. We do know that they were worried it would alienate super fans, and by super fans they may mean, the toxic fans,
right?
And that's we're seeing that become an issue in this genre, and. Yeah. That's probably a topic for another show. In fact, would probably be a great topic for another show.
Yeah.
But, it has moved from being an annoyance to now being a factor in whether or not projects get greenlit. And it may not still be a huge factor, but it's now a factor.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos, the thing is that they do, Benioff and White do cite toxic fandom as part of the reason that supposedly that they walked away from Star Wars. Now,
yeah, but
we don't know.
What do they mean by that? I mean, toxic.
Well, they imply that what they saw happen with Ryan Johnson. But if that's true, I don't agree.
Well, then they're just cowards.
Yeah, and
I'm
sorry,
what?
That's
just
cowardly.
Fandom to go along the first time they made any kind of deviation to the source material.
Books, exactly. And you know what? I don't believe it either, because it seems awfully convenient that they're bringing it up now when they've had plenty of time to review what getting into Star Wars, what happened with Last Jedi. I mean, did you guys really sign on without reading the internet and what happened with Ryan Johnson? Have you not talked to Ryan Johnson and what he went through for the last year? I mean, really?
But here's the thing. Even if there were concerns about a toxic fandom, let's be completely and utterly honest. If they're doing this story in like the Old Republic setting,
if nobody confirmed that, but.
if that's what I said, if they're doing this in this setting, period, gamers aren't as toxic as the Star Wars fandom is.
You know what?
That may be hard to measure.
Depends.
They are now.
Depends.
We don't know. It depends on what's happening each week with any subject. So let's move on a little bit. So, these guys, the Game of Thrones prequel got scrapped, but we have another announcement, House of Dragons. We talked about that. That's been announced. They jumped from one negative to a positive to say, hey, this one's, we spent millions of dollars to make this one that we scrapped. However, we have, this is the funny part, the House of Dragons one, they didn't just greenlight it. They committed it straight to series, which means
As we've said 3 times, George.
Yes, George.
It's straight to series. So that says something. So,
at the risk of repeating myself, I think it's clear why.
And you know why some people join us a little late, so.
Well, yeah, but again, it's a question of what they're investing in, and here they're investing in a known quantity.
Speaking of Disney, though, and Star Wars, we had a Mandalorian trailer.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask a question of each of you.
Sure.
Ross,
yes.
Do you play video games?
Yes.
Justin, do you play video games?
Justin? Yeah.
George, do you play video games?
Some, yes.
Carlos, do you play video games?
I don't.
Okay.
I would love to know where you all find the time.
the majority of people here are gamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say gamer.
Toxic.
Yes. Carlos.
As much as any other fandom out there.
Yeah, the way I've seen gamers go at it just like anybody else does. I mean, it happens.
Right. And those that do are an extremely small minority of people who are really and extremely loud compared to the rest of everything.
Well, my cousin
prime example, getting ahead of myself.
Go ahead.
BlizzCon is this weekend. And there are protesters there in response to what happened with Blitzchung. It's a rather small amount, but it's a very positive kind of protest, which is focusing more on the pro-Hong Kong thing than anything anti-Blizzard. If there's time, I'll go into it later, but that's all I'm going to say for now.
No, that's fine. And the thing is, too, that like my cousin Ralph, he runs a successful gaming channel, and Ross, you know who he is.
Yes,
I think, son, you might.
I share on that page.
Yeah, and he runs into this shit all the time. And gamers are, if you're going to be a gamer and you're going to do a show like what we do for a gaming show, you have to really have your big boy or big girl pants on. You have to like be ready to handle and just roll with it, because they are way more toxic than what we deal with. It's the
same, George. It's exactly the same as any other fan.
Maybe more vocal.
Toxic gamers are the same as toxic Star Trek fans or toxic Star Wars fans.
Right.
It's all the same psychology.
But here's the difference, though. It's just cooler in media to expose the toxic gamers as being all gamers.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that has taken over people's mindset of what being a gamer is.
That's actually a fair observation, son. I'll give you that. Because I was watching something earlier today where they talked about the psychology of people doing that, where they say they blanket it. And they, not just gaming, where you call out people online, whether it's this or that, and then you can sit back and go, I mean, I called you out first.
Well,
so,
but let's be fair here that the toxic section of any fandom is by definition loud, and they themselves
vocal minority.
Yeah, they pretend to be representing all fans. So
and
since the rest of the fans are not speaking up, these are the only ones who are filling in that gap, and they're claiming that they're speaking for everybody. So
that's a good example.
So that's not. It's not like the media is making this up out of thin air.
No, I agree. Ross, what you were about to say?
Prime example for us, the Dark Circle.
There you go. Now let's talk about something positive, people. Let's talk about the Mandalorian trailer, because it was epic. The final trailer.
Oh my God!
Less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks for anybody not signed up for Disney Plus.
I'll sign up in 2 weeks.
Unless you are watching Freeform.
Why?
I don't understand.
The Freeform channel, which is a Disney-owned network channel, is doing a Disney Plus week introduction thing,
formerly known as ABC Family.
That's awesome.
And Verizon supposedly is giving you a free year.
What's funny about them being previously known as ABC Family is that they were also previously known as the Fox Family Channel. So, and considering that they bought Fox recently, that was years ago, though.
I think that Fox Family was a separate channel.
No, welcome, Sean. Sean P. O'Halloran is in our chat. I think we know who he is. He has no pants. I don't know if he has his pants on.
Yeah, we have to find out what his pants situation is.
Yeah, Sean, what's your pants situation?
No, they have gone. Freeform is actually going to be having a Disney Plus kind of pre-week thing, and one of those days is supposed to be The Mandalorian.
Are they showing are they showing the pilot, or
I'm not sure, but because all the advertisements has been really hush about what they're doing, but they've made this big deal of if we have Mandalorian Monday or something like that.
By the way, guys, anybody, just so you guys know, or anybody out there, not only does The Mandalorian debut in less than 2 weeks, but all the reviewers were allowed to watch the first 30 minutes of the first 3 episodes. Nothing but praise. There's not a single negative review of, now granted it's the first 30 minutes, but still, The Mandalorian is getting universal, because they were confident. They allowed a select audience of critics to say, you can watch the first 30 minutes of the first 3 episodes, and people were, and all the critics came back with was mind blown type of hashtags.
But how can we even trust critics anymore? Because there's been a few movies that have come out recently that the critics have said suck, but fan base love.
That's not a new phenomenon.
I'm feeling pretty confident.
I would say that TV critics and film critics are a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: it's TV, but like it's a new kind of in between medium with this. With the quality of the show and the FX and the money spent and the practical effects. If you watch the behind the scenes and the stuff they show, I mean, you can call it a TV show, but holy crap, it comes close to being like a movie. I mean, it's crazy. You know, that's what makes this an exciting era to be in with what Disney Plus is going to do. And The Mandalorian is has a lot of promise. And Jon Favreau went on record, I think it was yesterday. He said, somebody asked him in an interview, he said, are we going to see Luke? I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said because, you know, it's a private joke between all of us about whether Luke's going to be in The Mandalorian. But people ask me, are any of these characters from the movies, the classic characters, are they going to be making an appearance? And he said, yes. He didn't say who. He didn't say when. He just said, yes. That's all he said. So it opens up the door. I mean, who wouldn't have guessed that anyways? I mean, that's just common sense. You picked, it's like with Picard, you know, is Riker going to show up? Well, now we didn't expect him to show up as quickly and see the trailer, but it kind of makes sense to like have, if the story fits, to make the character, fit. But all I'm saying is that
you said this
Jon
before.
Favreau said,
we just don't know. We'll see what happens.
No, this is new. It just came out the other day.
No, I'm no. But what I'm saying is we still don't know. We don't know what that
means. He didn't name check Luke, so I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. So the point is, let's just see what happens. I mean,
I know
speculating on the same things every week just doesn't get us anywhere. So let's just.
So Sean says,
see what happens.
Hold
he's
on,
wearing
Sean,
pants.
So
he's wearing pants.
He says, FYI, everyone, I'm getting the first episode of The Mandalorian because when the series starts, everyone will be using their 7-day free trial, even if they subscribed. Thank you for that information, Sean. I think that is not going to go. I think that everyone is going to go beyond that 7-day free trial and do something illegal, but they shouldn't do that. You should not pirate, people. The Disney Plus is worthy.
The reality is that Disney Plus is cheap enough that, if you can't pay that money to watch it, it's like you're spending more of that just in terms of the amount of time.
If you guys are paying for Netflix,
well, here's an interesting thing that I read an article this past week that basically was saying that with Disney Plus, doing their introductory, pretty low introductory monthly fee, with Apple giving away a year's worth of Apple TV to anyone who buys any of its devices, with Verizon doing the same thing with its customers. They're basically saying that this is the best lifeline they could have thrown Netflix that they could, because essentially no one's going to give up their Netflix because they don't have to, because they're getting these new channels for free or very low cost. And so that gives Netflix a year's breathing room to develop new content and to try to keep, attracting new subscribers, and keeping, retaining.
We're going to get some healthy competition, I think.
So we'll, so what I'm saying is, for this first year, you can't necessarily take the relative success or failure of any of these channels until people have to pay for all of them.
Right.
We'll see some indications of quality and attractiveness in terms of subscribers, but we won't really see the rubber meet the road until all of them are literally operating on equal footing, which is that their subscribers are going to be having to pay for it.
And here's what I love. Okay. Disney Plus is I feel like I should be getting paid for endorsing them, but what is there to say negative about it other than people bitching if you have to pay? What are you getting out of it compared to all the other streaming channels? Well, they not only got a catalog of like 1 billion shows that you want to see, they're spreading it out in a smart way so that it's not dropped at once. You're not going to do a one and done, and you're not going to binge them. And not only that, but they spread it out so that over the next year, you're going to watch The Mandalorian. You're going to watch anything that Disney has ever, the back catalog. You're going to be able to. They also announced that you can download and keep.
No,
there's a certain.
Nope.
Oh, did
took
they?
that back. They
All
took that
right,
back.
all right.
The next day they walked it back.
Okay, but you can at least watch all the new shows that they're doing, and they have more and more. You don't have to wait. Like I'll give you a quick example. I'm still subscribed to CBS All Access. The reason I resubscribed is because of the short treks. The last one I watched was The Trouble with Edward. The next one doesn't come out until later this month, and then there's not another one until December. So I've been paying for something that I'm not actually watching, except for waiting for this one 15-minute next short trek. And I feel a little like, should I really have done that? See, but with this, you watching like the first episode of She-Hulk, you're watching the first episode of whatever the Hawkeye or whatever, and then Star Wars: The Mandalorian, which is the first flagship show, by the way, when they launch in November and this month, and then you're going to have all these other things coming one after the other, or a couple of them might be crossing over, But the bottom line is, you're never going to be waiting like should I still be paying for this? Should I cancel? No, because the next show is going to air later that week or the week after. Is CBS All Access doing that? No. However, I will say that CBS All Access is trying to build that catalog. The only thing they can't compete with is how Disney, with their billions of dollars, were able to arrange to dump this catalog and arrange
a very
it this way.
large catalog, George.
Well, no, for their upcoming shows.
But you also have to. For
the upcoming shows.
They literally just bought all of Fox's catalog too.
Yeah. They've got.
But
the
they're not just doing that.
They're for Disney Plus, George.
But look at their original lineup. I'm not talking about what they acquired. I'm like, look at the catalog of what they have lined up for their original
nobody
content.
disputes that, George.
And you also have to remember, there is content from Disney you will never be able to see on a streaming service.
I know that, Carlos. I'm just saying that in
That's true.
conversation.
The other story we saw this week is exactly what Sun said, which there are a lot of things Disney is now putting in its vault. It will not be available. Probably not ever again, but they will control when and if it will ever be.
I would absolutely love if there was, and this is the problem I have with Disney. Disney looks like it's double and triple dipping with the streaming services because it's got Hulu now, and now it has Disney Plus and all this kind of stuff. So they're making 3 and 4 of their own streaming channels, so to say. But yeah, I kind of would love a like, I don't know, like a black label streaming channel from them to watch some of the stuff that they have put in their vault to never be seen again, like Song of the South. Because I'd love to be able to see that movie and just critically watch a movie that has been called racist and all that kind of stuff for years, just to have seen it.
Well, Warner Brothers isn't shying away from it. They put a disclaimer on some of their old episodes of Tom and Jerry to that very effect, because it was a product of its time and has elements that are deemed offensive today. But they don't shy away from it. They own up to what it was, and in order to preserve the fidelity of the original products, but also recognizing that it is harmful.
We haven't talked about.
Well, let me. You asked for examples, George, of what Disney's doing. Yeah. What they're doing with this, with the most recently, are a lot of the Fox-owned movies. Here's a prime example: Sound of Music. There's parts, there are theaters all around the country who do Sound of Music sing-alongs and blah blah blah. All of a sudden now, Sound of Music is not available for these theaters to screen anymore. It's been put in the Disney vault. A lot of movies that we've taken for granted that will just always be around, classics like The Sound of Music, are being put away. And the bigger theater chains are the ones. They're the sources for this. They're the ones who are saying, we've always been able to get access to these Fox movies before, and all of a sudden now we're not. Now, what being put in the vault, let's be clear what that means. What that means is that Disney takes things off the market, they put it in their vault, and just let them sit there for a long time until they re-release it to, big new money, huge infusion of new money, because, demand for it is presumably built up for the time that it's been put away in the vault. And that appears they've done that for a long time. with their own stuff. Now we see with the acquisition of Fox that's happening with Fox, and that's it's a practice that has worked well for Disney, but with the other things, it's just not the Fox brand for these movies, and people feel like they're being cheated out of a part of their own culture, I think.
Yeah, that would definitely.
Well,
be,
let's go.
especially if they put something like, I don't know, Rocky Horror in the vault.
Let's go back a little bit to the original opener for this topic.
Raising Arizona, one of my favorite movies, is one of the ones they're putting in the vault.
Oh, nice.
If you
the
want,
Mandalorian, good.
I was going to say, if people want to read an article that talks about some of these other movies and stuff, Vulture was the one that published this story just this week. So just go to vulture.com, and the name of the article is Disney's quietly placing classic Fox movies into its vault. And you'll see, The Fly, The Omen, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Zardoz, the classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, Suspiria. These are all Fox movies that
The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's funny you mentioned that. Good.
But even things like Moulin Rouge, Princess Bride, Say Anything, Alien.
They vaulted Princess Bride.
That's one of the ones that is no longer able for movie theaters to rescreen.
Interesting. But
okay, now I'm pissed.
We talked about but we started with this whole topic talking about the Mandalorian trailer being dropped. I forgot we haven't even really addressed what we thought of that final trailer. Ross, let me just start with you for the hell of it. What did you think of what you saw in the final trailer for The Mandalorian? Now, we've already seen, and he spoke for the first time, by the way, in this trailer. What did you think?
Well, 2 thumbs up. I've only I haven't rewatched it since I saw it the first time, but there were some interesting... It took me a second to kind of get into it, and I'm still kind of cold on it, to be honest.
Is it because he doesn't take his helmet off? Or
I'm not even sure what it's really about, except a Mandalorian bounty hunter that reminds me of Boba Fett. So I don't know. I'd like to see more, but I'm not super stoked about it, I guess. Not ambivalent, but, kind of curious about it. That's my thought.
I felt like, because remember something, that one of the things they kept talking about is this character. I'm sure he's going to take his helmet off, but it is based off the man with no name, the Clint Eastwood character from the spaghetti westerns, and in a space form. So I don't think they're ever going to say his name. They're just going to call him the Mandalorian. I think he will take his helmet off. This is the first time we've seen him in the trailer say something. I've seen a scene from the first episode where he talks a lot, but that was a clip that was leaked. That wasn't actually a trailer thing. So, Carlos, what did you think if you saw that final trailer?
I thought it looked good. I mean, I'm going in with an open mind. I just have a question about how sustainable the premise is over over the term of a long series, long set of seasons for a series. I'm hoping that they prove me wrong about that. I'm not going in skeptical about it. I'm going to go in with a completely open mind, but and I hope it's right. I hope it's good. It looks like it's going to be good, at least to start.
Yeah, son, have you seen?
Who doesn't love seeing stormtroopers' heads on a pike? I mean,
quick trivia for those that don't know. And I love this trivia. I don't know if you guys saw my post. Jon Favreau hired a famous fanatical fan group called the 501st Legion, who are a stormtrooper. They love Star Wars. They've been doing this since the prequels. And they hired the entire fan group to play the stormtroopers in this series. They're not like normal extras. They're not normal actors. They hired a fan group, which is the legendary 501st, to play all the stormtroopers you see in this series. I thought that was fucking awesome, in my opinion.
Well, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Because you've got a group of fans that are literally
They have their own
regimented,
costumes.
that you can hire, and
Yeah.
you don't have to do a lot in terms of preparing
Costumes
them
and
to
And
do
they're
it.
non-union.
Well, I'd be surprised
You've
if they
got
actually
some-
use their own costumes,
some-
honestly.
no, they
Ready
do.
extras.
They do. They talked about this.
That
in
they
the
are
interview.
planning on using all the costumes.
They already shot it. They're on the second season, by the way, filming. Just so you know. And yes, they did. They brought their own costumes, and I don't know if it was because they thought we're going to save some money. They're not cheap, so it's not like that was the reason. I think he hired them because it was like a nod to the fans, and he was saying, "We hear you. We love your dedication. Why not? You guys are dedicated stormtroopers. Why not hire dedicated stormtroopers? I mean, it's not like you have a lot to do. You're going to go in there and get.
There's
you know,
a lot
you're
of
just gonna
reasons not to
shoot
hire
and
fans
do
to
this.
work on movies, but
I think it's great. I think it was a. Well, they're the ultimate extras, is the way I see it.
Yes or no. In most cases, like I said, I think the fact that this is a group of fans that are already very regimented, that's the thing about it. So, so they more naturally lend themselves to the kind of, things you have.
Well,
to
they
do
were
at the
they
movie
were
set.
they were
Let me finish,
previously.
George. Let me finish,
Sorry.
George.
Sorry. Go ahead.
And crap, you made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
Right. So, but I would argue that with a lot of fans, they walk onto a set of a movie that they love or a franchise that they love, and some of them are awestruck and blah, blah. It's just not, they're not professionals. So, I think this is an exception rather than a rule, and I'm glad they're doing it, but I wouldn't count on that being a thing you'd see repeated.
Oh, no, I totally understand where you're in there. I'm just saying I think it's cool that they did it. Now, what I forgot to mention before I said that, and I should have, is the 501st have had prior history of being used by Disney in like commercials or ads or something. They have worked with them before. They have a history. It wasn't like they just said, hey, you guys want to do this entire series? They have had previous professional dealings with them, so they knew that they could say, these guys will work with us and we'll be fine. So they had some experience. It wasn't just a random, hey, you want to do this? So it just happened to be that they were these people, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, like I said, it's a win-win.
So
everybody wins in a situation like this. So,
Son, have you seen that trailer?
Yeah,
Son?
I've seen the trailer. I just I'm with Ross.
You're tired of Star Wars, right?
It's interesting. Make no mistake, it is a great trailer and it's a great premise. I'm just, I'm done. The Skywalker saga is over. Thank God. Let's move the hell on.
Well, yeah, I mean, that brings us back to the earlier topic, which is once the Skywalker saga is over, what's really left of Star Wars?
There's plenty left. Just look at Resistance.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Once you get past the first 10 episodes or so, it actually turns out to be a fairly decent Star Wars story. It could be set at any time. It's set during the First Order's rise, but it could easily be set in the Imperial era, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
I suppose that's true.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, Justin, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to give it a chance. I'm pretty much sick of Star Wars like everybody else, but...
Hold on, I'm getting a lot of Skyping. Here we go.
All right. Yeah, it's... I think it'll be all right. I'm going to watch it, see how it goes, and we'll have to do a pilot reveal whenever the time comes.
Well, it's in the next month, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's in less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
So, yeah, I'm subscribed to Plus.
I think it's the 22nd. I could be wrong. It's in the last couple of weeks of the November.
All right. So Verizon's unlimited plan, you get Disney Plus for free.
Screw Verizon.
Right.
All right. So Carlos, what's going on with Netflix doing these speed tests and pissing people off as far as can you lead us into this?
Well, it's something that a lot of podcast players allow you to speed up the playback. of a podcast, so you can listen to it faster. It doesn't take as much time. And so a lot of people are used to being able to do that from a technical standpoint. And I guess some DVD players allow you to do that with movies, but no network broadcast of any kind has really allowed you to do that. Netflix is testing this out as a feature on their platform that will allow people to speed up or slow down, actually, the playback of movies. And it's upsetting a lot of creators of movies, writers, directors, producers, who, they designed it to be seen at a certain speed, and a certain pace, because that's part of the texture of the storytelling that you're doing in film. And they're, I think, legitimately concerned that in an effort to, get more people watching, or get people watching more stuff in a limited amount of time, that the quality of their movies will get short shrift because of this technical capacity. So there's been a lot of complaints in the Hollywood creative community around that. Netflix, I think, has walked it back a little bit, saying, this is just a test. We're going to see how it works, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll see if that happens. But it's, it's an issue of concern to creators, where, you're telling a story, and pace is everything in a story.
I have a question for you then. If that's the case, why haven't they raised a fuss with DVD manufacturers? Because you can do the same thing with a DVD player.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I myself have never used that function on a DVD player, so I don't know technically how that looks. Have you, Ross?
Last time I watched the full extended Lord of the Rings series.
That's a commitment.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. But
I did it all in one day once.
This function has existed before, both with VHS and DVD, and it's available in some for audio formats as well. So I don't understand why they have an issue with Netflix when they haven't raised the issue with anybody else.
Because Netflix is essentially broadcasting. It's wide broadcasting. And with DVDs, a lot of people don't know that it's there. They don't, presumably it would be something you'd see front and center in Netflix's user interface. And, they're just afraid that given the opportunity, a lot of people will pounce on that, and to the detriment of their artistic work.
In fact, some broadcast networks have done this too. They they've speeded up by a fraction in order to squeeze in more advertising time, but mostly with series and syndication like Friends and other sitcoms.
Yeah, no, yes, I knew about that as well. For exactly the reason you're talking about, and syndication, local, we saw this with Star Trek. There's some episodes of the original Star Trek that, you've seen over and over and over again in syndication. And you only realize later when you see the full unedited version on like Netflix or CBS All Access, that you realize that there's scenes you've never seen before. There's like snippets of things you've never seen before, because they were generally chopped off at the syndication level in order to make more room for commercials. So yeah, that does happen. So it's not like, this is unheard of. And like I said, podcasts do it in audio presentations now. People are used to that function there. But I think it's the issue that because of the broad scope and reach of a service like Netflix, and that they'd be doing that, making that function available for everything that they do, as opposed to select programs, that's what the issue of concern is. And and also presumably it's the kind of thing where when you license a movie to a broadcast network for broadcast, you negotiate as part of that license agreement whether or not you're allowed to do something like this, and by how much. And like when I've licensed my movies for broadcast, very typically they'll ask for the ability to edit up to 5% of the length of the film. So that's a negotiating point, and it going in. The way Netflix is doing it, it's not being negotiated. It's just being done. And that's part of the reason why they're concerned about that.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
But with Netflix, it's a little different because you're not getting anything back from advertising, right?
True. For Netflix is offering it purely as a way to see more content in less time.
And okay, so we know that DC Universe announced a long time ago with Swamp Thing. They had a lot. They never finished the whole first season. Then we found out, DC Universe is doing whatever. And then, but the weird part was Titans was continuing, and Ross and I were enjoying that. But it was like, what is going on with the DC Universe as far as their streaming show? Well, they made a big announcement yesterday the other day that blew everybody's mind, which is that they're doing what has to be a huge budget thing, which is that Green Lantern has been greenlit and Greg Berlanti is doing this. Yeah. I see what you did there. HBO Max
did it.
I know. I linked myself to that. So the green light. Oh, it kind of looks like a green light, doesn't it? I wish I had a ring. HBO Max seems to be the new home for the Green Lantern series that they announced. And people keep asking, but is it connected? It's the Berlanti. It's Greg Berlanti. And they also announced Doom Patrol. As Ross pointed out in our chat, Doom Patrol is going over to that indicates that they're basically migrating.
Doom Patrol season 1 is staying on
DC.
For now
on DC Universe.
now,
season 2 is being premiered on HBO Max. It's still going to show up on DC Universe, but after it's run its course on HBO
this has
Max.
Been in the air.
They're migrating
for a couple of months.
They're migrating.
They're not migrating. They're going to merge. They're going to merge the two.
You consider it a merge?
Yeah, of course. I mean, migration assumes that if you're taking all of the programming from one and putting it over on the other, that's merging. I mean, but they're both owned by Warner Brothers.
I call it migrating because you're moving.
It doesn't really matter.
Because you're moving.
The end effect is the same.
They're doing that with
all right. I'll agree with you there, Carlos. I'll agree with you there.
The point is that DC Universe as a streaming platform probably is going to go away.
Green Lantern, HBO Max is saying, hey, guys, bring your shit over here. We want some superhero shit over here. Let's go.
Unless I don't know if it's going to go away because DC Universe also has a bunch of comic books and some audio programming on it.
Yeah, that might be where they're sticking around for a while. But
we'll see what they do. I mean, whether they bring those features over to the other or if it's just going to be. I mean, it will be interesting to see. I hope that we don't lose it because of this.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. Greg Berlanti is overseeing this. So
I'm sorry.
That's the part that makes me go.
If this is going to follow the same stuff as The Flash, I'm not interested.
You know what? I kind of agree.
No.
I do, because the thing is, and I love Greg Berlanti.
They handle it differently over there.
Every season is the same.
I agree with you, son, but
it causes a problem. You admit you kept something secret, and that's the cause of the problem. Then everybody works together to fix it. End of season.
Okay, let me ask you this. You have not seen Titans or Doom Patrol, correct?
No.
Well, she's talking about Berlanti shows.
I know that. I'm getting there. The point is that when Berlanti, when they did this, when they brought out Titans and Doom Patrol to launch DC Universe, which Swamp Thing fucked over, whatever happened behind the scenes, I don't care. The point is that it was an attempt to, they're sort of, it's the same people, but they're trying to do it in two different platforms. And the thing is that I totally get where Son's coming from as far as, is this the same thing that what they're doing over on the CW? No, it's actually not. Because Ross,
they'll have to prove it to me first.
And
her point is,
we have a guy.
Point is, it's Greg Berlanti. This is his signature approach to all these superhero shows.
Which is why we have Ross over here,
who have to shout, George,
has been like me watching. Sorry, we have Ross over here who has been like me seeing what they're doing on that other platform, right, Ross? Like with Titans and with Doom Patrol, and we can say that it's a totally different type of a. He's been given a different type of what's the word I'm looking for? Reign, I guess. I'm
not sure what you're getting at.
What I'm trying to say is
he's saying that a network show like CW has certain parameters under which you have to perform, produce things, and whereas what you're seeing in DC Universe,
they're hands free on Titans
Titans, they're giving them a lot more creative room to do stuff,
like
seeing Brendan Fraser's butt, which you would never see on CW. Just saying.
Well, and the liberal use of fuck.
There you go.
It is.
I'm just saying that,
very different, but at the same time, so far there has been no major crossover events like we get with all of the CW shows. Doom Patrol was certainly soft launched or soft piloted within Titans, but since then the two groups haven't crossed paths since.
It's only been 1 year, within the same this year.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Flash got his soft launch on Arrow, but then every year, or and sometimes more than once, he'd cross back over with Arrow, and they'd say hi, go on an adventure together, and then go on their merry way.
Right, but still, I mean, it's its own thing,
Is it terrible that the crossovers, which I absolutely loathe having to hop from series to series, is probably the only part of the Berlantiverse that isn't the same dredging mediocre shit?
Did you say loathe? Did you actually use the word loathe and not love?
Yes, she did.
She did, George, yes.
She loathes.
Son.
You have Q-tips. I suggest you use Q-tips.
I can't stand.
No, I thought I heard it. I just want to make sure.
I can't look. I love the Flash. I love the Flash as a series. I cannot stand the constant sameness of every season of the Flash. I can't.
I have to agree with Son.
You got
there.
a point there.
I like the characters. I like when it's basically the same
argue with
template
that
every season.
I'm not going to argue with that.
And
the thing is, I mean, we saw the same thing happen.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you guys on this one because
I literally have to hop from show to show.
I don't mind that. I mean, that's like
crossovers.
We live in a world where you can do that with a digital.
That's comic book stories 101. They did crossover events like that since the beginning of comic book crossovers.
Yeah, and Grant Gustin is a good actor, but he can only do sad Grant, and I fucked up. I screwed up.
That is not his fault.
It's all long,
but that is the writing.
No, it is.
That is the directing.
This latest season, it wasn't even him though. It was all Nora.
Yeah, I'm sick of her.
Anyways, well, I mean, Son, you're not wrong. I will give you that. You're not wrong, but they have done more right. You know what's funny? I've been actually the one person who's never. The last 3 years said I gave up on Arrow since season whatever. I have to tell you, the only reason I've been watching this season of Arrow
is because it's the final season.
People kept saying, "No, dude, this season." No, it's not because of that. It's because it leads into Christ's.
You see the Monitor or Anti-Monitor mentioned every episode.
No, it's not just that. I actually have enjoyed. I've been watching Arrow. This season, for the first time in like 3 years, I actually like it. It's like the creators and the writers are going, "Hey, because it's the final season, let's give a shit." I'm just saying, guys. If you gave up on Arrow, watch the final because they now give a shit. Because
I would really prefer that the people who make TV shows gave a shit every season. So. Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying.
That should seriously tell you something about how all that stuff is working over at CW.
But Carlos,
they have a formula over there. Once they found a formula that works for them, and they just rehash it every season. Something new every season.
And that's a real problem. That's a real
I
problem.
mean, if they could be a little bit more original, I mean, it would be okay. But I mean, we all know how this is going to play out.
Well, I mean, that's
Carlos,
certainly what
as
we've
a-
seen in the CW's treatment of superhero shows. Hopefully, what we're seeing happen at DC Universe will translate into what we see happen in HBO Max. And
It's not just the
and
superhero shows. Supernatural had a few seasons where it was the same
few?
thing again and again.
a few.
They all blend together. My
They really
fiance,
do. They really do.
She's a huge Supernatural fan. I've had to watch the season with the entire series with her at
Wait,
least
who's
three times.
who's a huge
My fiance, my wife,
Supernatural fan?
Ray.
Oh, Ray. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I have to ask Carlos this. Because they're both big DC fans. You hear? By the way, I didn't know this. I guess people can learn from their mistakes. So Justin brought up a good point. I hope this isn't as bad as the movie. But it turns out Greg Berlanti actually made that movie with Ryan Reynolds, and I'm like, oh shit.
What
But
movie was
I
Ryan
think
Reynolds?
Green Lantern.
The
Green Lantern.
movie.
So
Oh.
I'm thinking,
So he
oh
doubly
shit.
has shit to prove.
Yeah, he really does. It was
but we don't know if he was
disappointing
held
movie.
back. Yeah, but
It's
we
true,
don't know
we
if he was
don't know.
held back by them, because he's proven himself on TV pretty well, right? Can we give him some, or can we say in hindsight that maybe he learned and now he can do a good Green Lantern with a bigger budget?
I'll say this about Berlanti: he's great at sticking to a formula.
So, do we think that Green Lantern could on HBO Max with a bigger budget is the bigger budget going to
Don't
be?
no.
No. What I mean,
Green
that's what I'm
Lantern. Green Lantern, the movie, had a huge budget, so this is not a budget issue. If anything, it'll be a smaller budget.
Well, right. What I'm
Sure.
saying,
Big
they
budget
can
for
do
TV.
more with less.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I mean is more with less. What I'm saying is, are we? So Berlanti did that. We don't know whether he was cock blocked as far as the producers or whoever during the movie. Do we think that he's proven himself since then though to be able to handle the material of the DC characters? Do we think that maybe with HBO Max behind him that he might actually, pull it off successfully this time, Carlos? Maybe? Or are they taking a big risk?
I don't know the politics behind the production of Green Lantern.
Right.
And, I just know it was a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. And I'm a huge
I didn't hate it, but
Green
a
Lantern
lot of people
fan,
did.
But yeah, it was just very lackluster. It didn't pursue any of the things that really make Green Lantern great. And I love Ryan Reynolds, but I just didn't buy him as Hal Jordan.
Who do
I
they
thought it
have
was-
as Hal for the series?
What's that?
Have they announced who's going to be Hal for the
No.
series?
Yeah, I don't think
they
they've
only just
the
announced
cast
that there's
yet.
going to be a series.
Okay.
Just that there is generally going to be a series. Son, what are you going to say? Go ahead.
Speaking of remakes, because we're talking about the Green Lantern, apparently Disney is remaking A Christmas Carol again.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, my favorite version still is the 1938 version, black and
And,
white.
Doctor
It's
Who?
awesome.
And they're
No.
they're apparently going Muppet Christmas Carol this time, just without the
I
Muppets.
thought they already did a
Oh.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Without the Muppets?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they did-
making
they did a long
making-
time ago.
Titled Marley. It's supposed to be a musical version of A Christmas Carol. So it's the Muppet Christmas Carol without the Muppets.
All right, then.
Okay, don't get
it.
All right, let's
A
move
Muppet
on.
Christmas Carol was mostly a musical with the Muppets.
Yeah.
You take
Of
out
course.
the Muppets and you're
And
left
Michael
with
Caine.
a musical Christmas Carol.
Right.
So that's what's going
All right.
on. It's a musical version of the A Christmas Carol.
I want Justin to use an avatar of Santa Claus and do our Christmas
No.
Carol next show
No.
or one of the
Too
ones.
soon.
No.
Only if
No.
it's TV Santa Claus.
All right.
Wait, that was 3 beeps. What are we
Really-
supposed to make from that? Wheelie
I
Pike?
mean, from 3, that's Wheelie Pike on steroids. Anyways, let's move on to the next subject, which is they're doing a Superman and a Lois Lane TV show. They announced this. Tyler
Oh,
Hoechlin, and
yes.
I don't remember. I don't
It's
remember the
pronounced
actress's
Hecklin.
name. Hecklin, you're right. Hecklin is. They announced it. No, I read. Here's the news announcement. This particular series is not just Lois and Clark. They're parents. She's had a child. It's based on a certain recent comic, and
Yep.
they have a son. And it's going to be, from what I read, Tyler
Hecklin.
said. Yep, Hecklin said it's basically the difference in this series is it's not just about Superman and Lois Lane. It's the next step. How are they as parents to a super child? I love it. I
Are
think
they
it's
gonna
going to be
be
amazing.
on the Argo?
Rise. No, if you haven't been watching the shows, have you, Russ? Is it okay
I'm
though? You're
behind.
busy.
I'm catching up. I only
Yeah, okay.
watch on Netflix.
So last year in Elseworlds, the girl that they cast, who is a great actress as Lois Lane,
I've seen
told,
Elseworlds. I know that. I know
Okay.
what happened there.
Okay,
They
so
went to.
this is basically
They
Yeah,
went
well-
to the went to the floating the Kryptonian city
Argo
so
City.
that they can have the baby
right.
without it
I
punching
don't
out of
know.
Lois's
Yeah, I
guts.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know those details, but apparently, obviously, it's focusing on them being
That was
the
literally the Elseworlds crossover, George.
I know that, but the point is this series that they announced is
Uh-huh.
the two of them raising the Superboy, the child, based on the comic that
Okay.
that they're a little Jonathan Kent, named after the father of the
They're
adopted
raising him
father
on Earth.
See, this is the question I had when we
That's the
talked
question I'm
about.
asking.
right.
This is the question I had when we were talking about Crisis. Because if Crisis is coming up and it's supposed to quote unquote destroy everything, doesn't that mean that all of that stuff shouldn't exist now? Or is it going to be like
Obviously,
timeless?
all in the same
there's going to be
place?
some. Well, some of it's obviously going to be spared. They're not going to obviously destroy everything, but merge everything. I mean, Carlos and I talked about how they probably will use it like the comics, where they're going to merge Supergirl's Earth and have a good excuse, but they're not going to destroy everything. Obviously, I mean that's apparent. So we'll see how they end up, what the end result is. But what do you guys think about the concept of Superman and Lois, or whatever the title is, with these two? We've only seen them. I mean, CW seems pretty confident.
I
To
would look at this this kind of show and say I would actually enjoy watching Clark try to be the father he's always wanted.
right. It's the next step. I'm tired of, and I love that they're doing this because it's funny. A couple of weeks ago when we had Adam on, not a couple of weeks, a few weeks ago, I talked about how the difference between the what's that show, the new one, The Boys, is that they've only had one version of The Boys that has come out to adapt, versus Marvel and DC, where they have all these characters like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, where they keep rinsing and repeating. You can only they Spider-Man marries Mary Jane. They do a reset. They go backwards. It's like they start all over again. You do it in the movies too. He meets Mary J for the first time, over and over, rinse and repeat. You're not going forward. You're going backwards in a loop. And what they're finally doing, and that I love in this story, is they're moving forward. They're saying, what's the next story? And DC Comics did it, and they're adapting that in this show. They're saying, okay, guys, for the last 70 years, we knew that Superman and Lois got together, and the comics have done it, but it's always an alternate Earth, and they should move forward. They have a child, and it's like, move forward. And this series is like taking Lois and Clark and saying, now what? I love it. What do you think, Carlos?
Well, I'd like to see how they handle it. I mean, I don't read comics regularly anymore, but I am aware of,
In general.
yeah, I mean, no, I'm aware of what they've done with the new Superboy, John Kent, who he went apparently on some cosmic tour with a rejuvenated, reincarnated, something aided Jor-El.
Yeah.
And because of time dilation, he went away as a little boy and came back as a
I'm not much
teenager.
more than you. I'm just telling you. I just generally hear these things.
Yeah, he's the Superboy that now appears with the Legion of Superheroes, in the new Legion of Superheroes. So anyway, yeah, I agree with you. I'm tired of seeing movies and TVs always sort of starting from scratch again. And so this is kind of cool that they're picking up, in the middle and moving forward from there.
Go forward.
We'll see how well that works. I mean, I hope it does work, because I think it would encourage some risk taking and the kind of stuff, frankly, we're seeing like in Titans and Doom Patrol. Although, to be fair, part of what's making Titans work so much is how closely it's sticking to what George Perez did.
The source material, right.
So again, source material is everything on this. So yeah, I think there's possibilities. I'd love to see that turn out well. Hope they do it more.
Interesting that you brought it up, Carlos, because when it comes to the Titan show, they acknowledge some of the backstory of up to a certain point.
Yeah, no, we've talked about
they're picking up from a certain point. They're not saying like Superman and Bruce Wayne, everybody have had a history in the Justice League. So from that point of their history, we're moving forward. But they're not like
but we're not seeing them
all the way back. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just see how it works. It'll either work or it won't. So, I mean, the last Lois and Clark show was on. How many seasons was it on? It was on for a while.
Jeez, I forget. ABC, right? And it was it was like
his
4 or 5
90s,
seasons.
Yeah, I think it was around 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So,
but the point is that everybody acknowledges that Lois Lane is just as important, no matter what version you do of her, as Superman. And I can't remember, they actually announced the title. I think it's Superman and Lois instead of Lois and Clark. I can't remember, but I'm probably reporting this. But I think that what's cool is when they introduced her on Elseworlds, and son, you even said you saw this, and so did you, Ross. And this actress, we saw them both as a power couple. Now, they must have seen something in them, because they obviously, we heard the rumors a long time ago, and people kept saying, oh yeah, they're talking about that. And it's like all these sites that were reporting it were like not really credible sites. But I mean, you know what's interesting about this? This is the first time that Superman is a spinoff of Supergirl instead of Supergirl being a spinoff of Superman.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think some of the other things that are interesting coming down the pike. Screen Rant did an article, I think last week, in which they said this was the wrong Superman show to do. They said, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it have been a more interesting story to have told the Kingdom Come story, and bring back Brandon Routh as that Superman. And, I don't think that's a bad idea, because frankly, that kind of show would track exactly with what we're seeing working really well in The Boys, in Watchmen, and as opposed to the sort of this domestic thing that it sounds like this is going to be.
Anthony,
they could possibly try
real
that.
quick, hold on. Real quick, Anthony, I can't pronounce his last name. Anthony says in the chat that Lois and Clark ran for 4 seasons.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that
anyways,
makes sense.
Justin, what were you saying? Sorry.
I said, there's no reason for them not to try it. I mean, it could be an alternate reality, and we don't know if they're going to be able to reality hop or anything else after Crisis. So we never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying I think it's an edgier choice that could have been made. And given the fact that we're seeing shows that go down that path doing really well creatively and critically and with audiences on HBO and Amazon Prime, that it might have been worth following a similar path with Kingdom Come, which it was a very textured and deep series in the comics. And again, there's a there's really great source material that already exists out there. Whereas, the whole, Superboy and the, Lois and Clark thing is still a relatively new thing in the comics. So we don't know how well that's going to work long term.
Right.
So you made the comment edgy choice, Carlos. Do you know what a really edgy choice would be?
Injustice.
To end that series, that Lois and Clark and Kid series, in the destruction of wherever the hell they are because of Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Well, I mean, that's going to be a forward-going. That series obviously takes place after Crisis, so their world, whether it's on Earth One or
yeah, but see, here's the thing:
they merge it.
You've already got this explanation of time dilation and all this other stuff that you could say is going on.
Well, they haven't introduced that on the TV series.
Not yet.
So.
Yeah, not yet.
We're already getting Brandon Routh as
Kingdom Come, right?
Superman in Crisis.
Yeah,
well,
and that's the
hopefully,
thing.
what would be great would be, sort of like a critical and fans going up saying, this is great. This is what we want to see in the future. And the CW saying, yeah, let's do that. Or, short of the CW, if it's not on brand to go with a series that dark for them, that HBO Max or DC Universe picks it up and runs with it. I think,
And by the way, they're yeah, and I'm a little okay. I am like I said, this season of Arrow, because it's the way they're tying in and trying to go out on top, is cool. What I have a problem with is that there's these rumors that the next series they're going to do is called Starling City 20 or Arrow 2040 or whatever. It's based on 2 episodes of Arrow that aired last season, where it's Arrow's daughter and all this other crap.
I don't know about that, because they're doing a backdoor pilot for Green Arrow and the Canaries. So,
but you watched those episodes though?
Yeah, but the point is, how many Green Arrow series do they expect they can have on one network?
I don't know.
They're not going to have 2. Let me put it to you that way. They're not going to have 2.
Wait, what's the other one you talked about?
It's like having
Green Arrow and the Canaries.
Spider-Man reboots in like 5 years' time.
Yeah, but Carlos is onto something. I forgot. Because at first the rumor was that it was a spin-off it was based on last season. They did 2 episodes where they hinted.
Yeah, I know, but there's no real evidence of that. And while there is concrete evidence that they're making Green Arrow and the Canaries. So all I'm saying to you is flimsy rumor over here, actual fact. I'm going to go with the actual fact.
All right.
And even so, do you really want another Nora series?
No.
No.
As
my God.
I would say.
Thank you, Wheelie.
Guys, that's not your UPS driver backing up. That is Justin in Captain Pike's wheelchair, because he is a Starfleet officer, and he has been allowed to wield that wheelchair. So
he disagrees with
you.
Okay.
Except, anyways, so let's talk about
yes,
what we're
2 for no, 3 for ellipsis.
Let's talk about what we're watching. Guys, let's talk about what we're watching, because there's a lot we're watching. Ross, what are you watching?
I spent the entire evening watching BlizzCon, Blizzard Entertainment's
yeah, you can watch
convention. They made a bunch of big announcements this year. They finally officially confirmed Diablo 4, which is the fourth game in the series. It looks really cool. They showed the intro cinematic, which is bloody and gory and dark and gothic, and
Blizzard
awesome.
does cinematic trailers well. Next,
they do it very well. They finally confirmed Overwatch 2, which is interesting in that it's a sequel, but you carry over all your progress from the first game, and anyone who's still playing the first game can play multiplayer with anyone who's playing the second game.
Oh my God.
And the third big announcement is the next expansion for World of Warcraft, which is Shadowlands. The leaks were confirmed. They released a really awesome looking trailer for that as well, both cinematic and gameplay. There's a bunch of fun stuff they're coming out with that probably bores you, so I won't go into it. But a lot of interesting stuff there. New heroes announced for Heroes of the Storm, a new commander for StarCraft 2, And tomorrow they're going into Warcraft 3 Reforged, which is what I'm looking most forward to. As I said before, there are protests there, but they are remarkably not anti-Blizzard. They are pro-Hong Kong, which is an interesting touch that I thought.
Hmm.
And it's largely peaceful. They aren't denying anyone entry into the convention if they're wearing the T-shirts that they were handing out. They aren't barring anyone who's wearing Winnie the Pooh costumes. So they're pretty interesting so far.
I can take mine out of the.
I mean, Ross, you're only the Winnie the Pooh expert on this show.
I wore a hoodie once, and I'm an expert.
George, you don't know me.
I mean,
you don't know me.
No, wait a minute. That's literally the rigorous vetting of most journalist outlets these days.
Yeah, you do know that they're going to find it, right? Unless I remove it from the internet, and even then, you're done, buddy. Your China visa is.
I thought it was adorable.
It was. Yeah, well,
if only for the fact we could still see your eyebrows.
Yeah, well, he did reveal his eyebrows. By the way,
it's a good thing I have no interest in mainland China, financial or otherwise. I've actually been to Hong Kong before. That was pretty cool.
I have too. I like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Hold on. I have to do. Oh, there we go. Ross, I just changed the view for everybody watching to focusing on you. I just watched you drink a drink of water. So there we go.
Water?
Can you please,
dude,
whatever you're drinking, okay, your wine. I want your eyebrows to be the focus for our. We have certain.
Oh my.
Okay, now it's just porn, George.
Yeah,
it's just porn.
I mean,
and besides George, that viewer is on YouTube. We are not on YouTube. We're on Facebook right now.
Justin, we have to know what those beeps mean. You have to set it up first.
So
otherwise, it sounds like a UPS
in order for
driver.
these to be effective, George, you need to upload this on YouTube.
Yeah, so do that.
Oh, it will be. It will be.
But he's not recording.
Who's next on?
It doesn't matter. We can still up.
Who's next on? What are we watching?
What are we watching? Me, and I'm going to say, and Carlos is going to talk about this. Watchmen, episode 2. Holy crap, Carlos!
It's shaping up. This series is shaping up. I'm loving it. It's.
I mean,
they have found the right balance between
exactly
keeping things mysterious and having a complete story in every episode. Because we've talked about this before with other series that just they hold so much back that you just don't have enough to hook you for the whole series. This, you desperately want to know what's going to happen next.
That
but at the same
scene
time,
where
you're
she
learning
walks
new
in,
stuff every episode.
And the scene, and guys, it's been a week. I'm gonna sort of spoil. Be prepared. So she walks into Don Johnson's closet after, and she's looking, and he has that costume.
Is he in there? Is he in there too?
No, he's dead.
But she finds out he's got the KKK costume in the closet, and he was her closest friend, and she never really knew him. That was powerful.
It was, although they also raised some doubts about whether that might have been planted, actually.
Ooh, that's a good point.
They say it in the episode. They're like
Louis Gossett Jr., by the way, guys, for a guy in his 70s or 80s, whatever age he is, holy shit, he's relevant in this. Yeah. And by the way, I have to check. I don't know if he's really as old as the character, but goddamn, this guy's relevant in this.
It's a new career for him. He's doing great in it.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on her name, Regina. Who plays Knight in it? She's fantastic.
Yeah.
She's just.
You mean the girl that plays his granddaughter, the White Knight, or whatever her name is? Her
woman who plays Knight. She's just Knight.
Woman. Sorry, my apologies. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't mean to call her.
And there's some backstory to her that we're going to be finding more about too. So.
Oh yeah.
So the setup is all great. I love what they're doing, and I'm looking forward to.
And we learn a little bit more about the politics that we talked about last week, the Redford whatever-zations or whatever you called it. So this world building that they're doing is amazing, and they, it's like they tie into the consciousness of what's going on in the real world right now, while at the same time offering a different take on what the Watchmen universe would do later. And everybody I know who's a huge Watchmen fan, except for obviously Alan Moore, he's the biggest critic of himself.
Yeah, he's such a curmudgeon.
Yeah, he'll never. So nobody should be looking to he's never going to watch this show. He even said, "I'm not even going to watch it." So don't look for his opinion. But the people who are the real like aficionados on this show love this interpretation and what it would be like in this modern time. And Ozymandias and what he's doing with I don't know if they're clones or what they are with his little plays, but it's kind of creepy. But at the same time, you're like
weird. but
they obviously, okay. Yeah, but they obviously hinted that, you know,
that there'll be some kind of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
I have a story thread for the both of you.
Sure, go ahead.
So what you guys have described about the KKK suit in the closet. What if it was his and he kept it around just to be a reminder of what not to be? Because
it could be. That could very well be it.
You know what, son? That is very possible.
There are a lot of people who were conscripted into the Nazis who keep their medals and uniforms as a reminder to never be that way again, or to never allow that to happen.
So based on what
is the current pope.
Okay, so based on what Son just said, look, guys, it's been over a week. This is 2 weeks now. I'm going to spoil a little bit. In the first episode of The Watchmen, Don Johnson plays this guy who is in charge, sort of the police chief. And his people, you know, the cops have to respond to these white supremacists that worship Rorschach, you know, from The Watchmen. And they use him as an excuse to be a white supremacist sort of terrorist group, and they call themselves what are they called? I forget. I forget the name of them. But the point is that at the end of he goes out of his way to fight them. So at the end of the first episode, he dies. He gets hung, and Louis Gossett Jr. is like in a wheelchair, and she's like, "You hung him up?" Yep. And you have no idea, like he's got powers or what happened. He's just claiming he killed him. He's up in the tree and he's dead. In the second episode, his best friend, who is one of the main characters of this series, who is a black woman, and I forget her superhero name, not superhero, but her alter ego, I guess you could call it. And
Silk Spectre.
No, not Silk Spectre. White. It's White Knight. It's Night.
It's just Night.
Night.
Yes, it is just
something Night.
Just Night. It is just Night.
No, there's more to it than that, but I forget. You're right, though, in general. And she, not White Knight. That was bad. I'm sorry, but the point is that she is grieving him, and then for some reason, her grandfather, Gossett Jr., DNA test reveals that it's her grandfather. Reveals that you should be looking into his background. So she goes in with night goggles or whatever into the home while they're grieving, and she finds a KKK costume. So she's questioning whether she ever knew her old friend who was there for her, who helped her crusade to fight these white supremacist terrorists, and yet he had a KKK costume. And like Son said, it could have been his past.
Well,
he might have overcome it.
I mean, it's a reveal that could go either way, but either way, it's shocking.
It's shocking, and I find that the way they're handling this.
Let's see. The reason I brought that up is specifically because you guys are talking about it mirroring a whole bunch of current day culture, and
to a degree, yeah.
I would absolutely despise this show if the reveal was, well, he was always this, and there is no redeeming him. Even
I don't think he was.
Friend and what the hell ever. If or it was planted evidence, that would be horrible. That would be a horrible way to close that, because right now in our current climate there is this air of no redemption, and to have something as horrible as being formerly KKK and saying this is a person who put that behind them and redeemed themselves would be a lot more powerful today than it was planted evidence.
So let's not skip this subject. Carlos, I think it's what she just brought up is important. And I think based on what I've seen, and I don't know, because this isn't based off an actual comic. They're making shit up as they go in this one. I think she's right. I think he either planted or he redeemed himself. What do you, based on what you saw, do you buy that he was just bullshitting? I don't buy that.
I don't think
He was awfully
bullshitting, but this is Damon Lindelof we're talking about. This is the guy who did The Leftovers, which took all kinds of different
that's
twists
true.
and
That's
turns,
true.
and all of them were good. So I'm very happy to sit in my seat and watch what happens.
He said give it the first 6.
By the way, you were right. It's Sister Night.
Sister Night. I knew it.
Sister Night.
There was a night. Okay. I knew when I said White Knight, obviously that was.
You don't need to belabor the point.
That was way off.
You don't need to belabor the point, George. It was Sister Night.
Yeah. Sister Night. But anyways, the point is that but Dawn Johnson's character, though, based on what we've seen from these first 2 episodes, again, like Sun pointed out, she hasn't seen it, but she might be onto something. I would be shocked because he was very passionate, and even in the flashbacks, it just doesn't make sense for him to have been a full-on member of this group and still done what he did. Well, it just doesn't make any sense.
Here's an important question. Are the flashbacks actual flashbacks, or are they somebody else's memory?
Well,
like Mr. Knight's memory of him.
No, they're not perspective flashbacks.
They seem to be legitimate.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting thing. He was a police chief. Look at who the police are in this world. They are masked themselves.
Right.
So people don't know who they are.
After that attack,
they're very regimented, and he was their leader, whom they saluted as a leader. This should all be sounding familiar to you. They have a Latin phrase that they close all their meetings with, which I forget what the Latin phrase is.
Yeah,
what it means,
that's a good point.
But what it translates as is "Who watches the watchman?"
Yeah.
So think about what that means in the context of a police force that is masked in Oklahoma. So,
Lindemann has an opportunity to blow our minds or have people going like this.
He's going to blow people's minds. That's what he does. So,
I actually agree.
Spoilers?
What's that?
We done talking spoilers?
We haven't actually given anything away, man.
Yeah,
not really.
But, you gave a spoiler warning.
A little bit. Okay, so we'll stop talking about. All I'm gonna say is, we said, what are we watching?
Okay, let's move to the next person.
Ross, what are you watching?
You already asked me.
Ross was
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ross was first.
You asked me first.
Son, what are you watching?
Your brain on George, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I forgot. We deliberately.
Son, let's just move to Son. Son, what are you watching?
Son.
Well, if you guys haven't been, and you probably haven't, but for the past couple of years, a comic book artist and an animator named Visipop has halted production on a whole bunch of their stuff to create this pilot called Has Been Hotel, and they finally released the pilot this week.
Wait, what's it called?
Has Been Hotel.
It
is the premise is basically the daughter of Satan, the princess of hell, is born and raised in hell, and every year there is a massive culling of souls in hell, and because she's not quite the demon that everybody else is, she wants to save these souls by making them repent and sending them to heaven instead. So they don't get killed. And because it's hell, there's a lot of raunchiness, there's a lot of cursing, there's a lot of gore, and it's all in this weird, fantastical, Tim Burton-ish, cutesy kind of style, and it is amazing. And so many people are falling in love with it.
Cool.
Think mid-90s Disney, or maybe with a touch of Don Bluth. Am I right, son?
It's definitely dark.
Oh,
from
Don
the,
Bluth, the guy from Dragon. Yeah.
It's definitely the dark era of the late 80s, early 90s. The kind of really
American Tail, the first
Secret of Nim.
Long Before Time. Secret of Nim. Yes. Yes.
That was
yeah,
dark.
yeah.
the
Secret
last
of Nim.
Cartoon.
unicorn.
Don Bluth. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I mean, think
It's the giant mouse of Minsk.
where the story is really weirdly dark and creepy, but it's wrapped in this cutesy for children looking thing. But while watching it, you go, "This is definitely not for kids." Because all you have to do is watch the first 3 minutes with Angel Dust, and you're like, "Yep, nope, this isn't coming to Nickelodeon never." Because I mean, it looks like something that would be on Nickelodeon, and then you have Angel Dust doing what he does, and it's like, yeah, no, this isn't coming.
It is kind of like Real Monsters, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it's definitely a lot cuter.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos, what have you been watching?
What have I been watching? I have I binged this week the new Netflix series, Daybreak, which I have to say I kind of enjoyed. Excuse me. It's definitely got its flaws, but the cast is really charming. It's it's dramatic, but also a comedy. It's a dramedy set in a post-apocalyptic Glendale, California, where some people still survive in the mall. Miraculously, everyone still has water and power, and only people under 18 survived the initial blast, and they basically become these tribes based on their original high school cliques, and adults have been turned into, they call them ghoulies. They're sort of zombies, and again, normally I hate zombies, but the ghoulies are, they're incidental to the story. The story is really much more about the rivalry between these different camps of high school cliques. And the main character is a guy who's like, the apocalypse is the best thing that ever happened to me, because he was a C student, not popular. Is he like a male Buffy? He's not quite that super powered, but he he's a survivor, and he learns skills that helps him he thrive in the post apocalypse. And he's joined by this little girl who's a genius, and this guy who's a former high school football player who
keep me to watch it every time I say I'm going to start it.
So it's Lord of the Flies mixed with Miri.
Mixed with I mean, you've got to find the right comedy analog to put in that mix, but that's kind of the direction it's moving in.
All right, so Bill Allen says in the chat, Daybreak plays out like Ferris Bueller's Guide to the Apocalypse. It is pretty cool, but a twist on a tired zombie genre. Is that, you think he's accurate?
Well, for one thing, I would not call it a zombie movie, because the zombies are not really the point of the story. So they're, as I said, they're incidental. So I don't think it's a typical zombie story, because if it were, I would be retching my insides into this camera right now, because I hate zombie movies. It's definitely a Ferris Bueller. Matthew Broderick is in it. And he plays the principal of the school. So
interesting. I didn't know that.
And the main character even has, breaks the fourth wall and talks to all of the characters at some point. Main characters break the fourth wall.
Okay, I heard that. I didn't know
like
Matthew
one of them
Broderick
is
was actually in it.
Cue montage, and they do this like whole romantic backstory thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's got, if you like that kind of stuff, you'll enjoy this. Some of the reviews I read online found that a little too precious, but I liked it. And, they felt like they were trying a little too hard to be Ferris Bueller. And I guess maybe that's true in the first couple of episodes, but after that, they do it less. And when they do it, it's measured. They don't overdo it. And again, Matthew.
How many episodes are in the first season?
I think it's 9 or 10. 10, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's
So Netflix did it as a drop, typical thing that they do.
yeah,
right?
it's all of them are available. And apparently it's rumored to have been gotten a second season order. The end of the
It's
first
possible.
season sets up it's great in the sense that it is a definite end. It is not a cliffhanger, except it is a cliffhanger. But like if it weren't, it's the kind of thing where if it weren't renewed for a second season, it would still be a very
be
satisfying
okay.
conclusion.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it sets up
I
a
like
second
that.
season that's very cool and not what you'd expect. So
Okay.
so give it a try. May not be your cup of tea, but if you want something that's a little different from the usual, then I think you'll enjoy it.
Wasn't
Cool.
there I don't know if we covered it or not, but wasn't there a series that was supposed to, they dropped the first half of the season all at once, and then they're supposed to be staggering the latter half every
That's
every week?
Castle Rock did that. They dropped three episodes all at once. Oops. They dropped 3 episodes all at once and then releasing on a weekly basis on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And I think that's also a 10 episode season. And so far so good, by the way. I'm enjoying that as well. I think I talked about it last week. The other thing what else was I watching? Totally not a sci-fi or genre thing, but I've been really kind of liking is Modern Love on Amazon Prime. And it's an anthology series, so every
Modern
episode
Love.
is different. And it's basically it's based on these essays that have appeared in the New York Times about love, different kinds of love in the modern era, and some of them are genuinely really good and kind of tear-jerking. So I've enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to watching his Dark Materials, which debuts this month on HBO, and apparently is so good that they've not only greenlit a second season, the second season is already filmed. So
I hear that from a lot of different series that people are doing that now.
yeah.
So
So I'm hoping that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign. The movie version, I don't think did the source material justice, and most people don't feel that way. But I'm glad they gave it another shot on television. I think it probably works better as a TV series than a feature film anyway. And I think it'll be good. I saw the original play in London when it was playing there, and fell in love with the story. It's based on a set of books, but so I'm hopeful. I'm certainly going to be watching the premiere this month.
well, Justin, Mr. Mummy, have you been watching anything that you want to tell us about?
I watched
Recently.
this week. Actually, great part. Pretty much how to finish.
What you're a little
We understood
away from
nothing you just said, Justin.
Right.
A little away from the microphone, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I watched Daybreak just a couple days ago. Actually, I binged it. Not too bad. It's campy.
Yeah.
It kind of drags in a bit where you want to skip it, but I mean, it's okay for what it is.
Anything else?
Nothing too much right now. I've been doing some other stuff, so I haven't had time to really.
Anything you want to recommend? If you were to say to the audience, watch this show, it's pretty good. Check it out. What would you say?
I would check out Daybreak. It's not too bad. Racing Dion, I finished that the other day.
Oh, yeah,
Finally.
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Did you finish Raisin Dion?
I did.
And what was your overall opinion of it?
I thought it was pretty good. It was a nice, fresh take of a superhero-ish type origin story. I mean,
There you go.
Haven't really seen that done before. Not like this. But it was a nice, refreshing take, I think. But, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Audience, I apologize for a little bit of Skyping because of my internet, but I think you heard what he said. Like, Dion, great show. Me and Carlos watched it. I don't think anybody else here saw it. But guys, seriously, Raisin Dion is an exceptional series. I really hope they get a season 2 because it is exceptional. All right, and did I pretty much asked all of you, right? Son, you told me, Ross, yeah, and everybody. Okay, so guys, I want to thank you for joining us live on Facebook. We're going to multi-stream next week. We're always going to try to improve our tech and our way of bringing the show to you, and we're always going to have multiple people that will join us, and sometimes we're only having a few of us, and sometimes we're going to have a bunch of us. December 8th, though, which is a Sunday, it's going to be in the daytime. We're going to have Dayton Ward. We're going to have Larry Nemecek. We're going to have
Nemecek.
I did it again, didn't I? I did so well.
You are fired, George.
Larry Nemecek. I said it too fast. That's what it was.
Look.
We're going to have Dayton Ward. Larry Nemecek.
If you wanna make it fast, just call him Lemon Check, okay?
Lemon Check. Larry Lemon Check.
No, don't do that. You're going to end up doing that for real.
No.
Embarrassing yourself.
Walski, Dave Galanter, and Chris Doohan from Star Trek Continues. Who's you know who he is. And we're going to be doing a great show for the Star Trek The Motion Picture anniversary that day. It'll be during the daytime. I will remind everybody and post it, and that'll be great. So we have some good stuff coming up, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. So for Carlos, where can people find you out there in the ether?
I am on Facebook in the Axe Monitor Facebook discussion group and the Axe Monitor official page, on the web at axemonitor.com. And of course, you can sign up for the Axe Monitor Daily at the Axe Monitor Facebook page. And I'm on Twitter at cpedraza and at Axe Monitor.
Ross, when I ask you next, I want you to not do www because I laugh every time you do that. You don't need to add that face. You do know that, right? You know what I'm talking about.
It's called being thorough, George.
Okay, go for it then.
You can find me at twitch.tv/live_love_play. If you enjoy turn-based tactics, real-time strategy, and open-world adventure games, I am the channel for you. I'll be doing a full recap of BlizzCon on Sunday, and my last broadcast on Halloween, I broadcasted Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Oh, I love that one.
Oh, so damn chilling. I had to stop the last time I played it because when I got to the part with the ovens, I literally got nauseous.
So this is a game.
People.
It's a game based on one of Mr. Ellison's short stories.
Oh,
about 109 years after the extinction of humanity at the hands of a rogue AI, he keeps 5 human pets as toys to torture for all of eternity.
I'm surprised you didn't do.
So basically, the game is Portal, just more sinister.
I'm surprised he didn't do
sinister.
I'm surprised he didn't do Fast Time at Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever it's called.
Freddy's.
No,
yeah,
Arby's did Five Nights at Freddy's for Halloween.
Oh, really?
Everybody does Five Nights at Freddy's. I wanted to do something
because I had my. Oh.
I wanted to do something more than just jump scares.
Well, you know what? I had my 13th birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, so whenever I saw the YouTube vids of Five Nights at Freddy's, that was enough to scare the shit out of me. Anyways,
Blumhouse is doing a movie based on it.
Oh, good. It will make a good
okay.
Has anybody seen the Banana Splits movie? I did a reaction to the trailer, the horror version. Well, it was a horror version, right?
Yeah. No, don't plan on it.
Did it go straight to DVD? Because I don't know.
I have no idea. I heard about it and I was like,
yeah.
I mean, harumph.
Right.
Harumph.
Son, where can people find you?
Facebook.com/SunsealFan. That's where I'll hopefully post the link to this week's episode from YouTube. And
it'll go up to you too. I promise.
I'll actually post the pilot for Has Been Hotel. I've already posted it in our Facebook chat, but I'll post it over there as well. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, you can find me in the Super Geeks group or somewhere else if you type in my name.
You can stalk her in a different channel. No, she has another fan group thing.
This princess is always in another castle.
There you go. Justin, do you have anywhere people want to find you, or you want to be found, other than the Mummy? Justin.
You can find me over at Xmonder with everybody, the real Super Geeks. I will also be on Mixer sometime this weekend, probably. We'll see how it goes. Other than that, we will, I'm always around. Never know.
We're going to adapt, people. We found out recently that Mixer is the next all the rage for the new kids on the block. And I looked into it today. Yeah, we're eventually going to hit that Mixer. But, I don't even know if that sounded... I don't even know if that sounded lame because Carlos and I are old guys. So when we try to sound cool,
like someone who has no idea what he's talking about.
Like when we try to sound cool, it's like saying going up to teenagers and going yo yo yo. Anyways, so we don't know, but we're gonna
right, George.
Yeah, that's true.
Before we go, there's been some legal weaseling going on.
Oh Christ, the legal weasel's out.
The legal weasel's back.
Yeah, there's been some legal weaseling going on in the Vic case.
Shit.
But it's too much to get into now. It's too much to get into now. We'll get into it later.
Suffice to say, you can say the broad strokes. That's like a
Give
sentence.
us a preview, though. Yeah. Say the header. If you were making a header.
So Vix filed his appeal on the motion to dismiss, and
All right.
Jay Sean has filed like an ass load of affidavits and other stuff for
Who's Jay Sean?
The opposition. Monica Rios,
okay.
Has filed all these motions and affidavits and letters that seem like blatantly contradicting of each other. So I don't know.
We'll
confusing.
track this.
They're milking the attorney clock for more money is what he's doing.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is we're going to track this story and see if it leads anywhere for us to talk about next.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, where it goes from here,
sounds like
it'll
it has
take some
potential.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's going to take some time at this point because now there are motions that have to be considered by a judge, and there might be hearings. And so it'll be a while before we know anything.
Right. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight on Super Geeks. And Carlos, you're the one I handed the keys to. So up on the left, you have to hit stop stream. Like I said. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. Peace out, people.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.